All right, UFC Mexico City, tons of fun, drama, and big takeaways. First up, the crowd energy. They showed up. Right from the first fight, they were ready to explode. Granted, it didn't start the best way possible, but nonetheless, the crowd showed up. And it's just a reminder of why the Apex sucks and why we gotta stop doing them. Think about it, the card itself on paper wasn't anything crazy or special, but the fact that it was in Mexico City with that crowd made the event from a viewing standpoint so much better, and probably made the performances from the fighters way better than if they were at the Apex with like no crowd and it's like dead and there's no energy. Starting with the main event, Moreno versus Royval. Right from the walkouts, Royval super emotional, crying, and obviously we know now that he said that he was going through something beforehand. He was having a hard time, but seeing it in the moment, you know, you were thinking, is this going to be a bad thing? Is he going to be too emotional, or is he going to be able to channel it? And he really did seem to, you know, stay calm despite being super emotional during the walkout. But leading into that, the fight itself, especially at the start, was not what I expected. If you look at Moreno and Royval's past fights, these guys go at it, volume striking, grappling nonstop. And maybe it had to do with the altitude. Maybe they were trying to compose their energy. But I don't know if that was the case, to be honest. I'm not sure. But I definitely didn't expect this fight to play out the way it did, especially early on. Moreno, of course, landing the power shots. He seemed to have the advantage early. But then Royval started to pick it up the more the fight went on, throwing a lot of volume. Yes, Moreno, people were saying, yes, he's blocking a lot. So people didn't really value a lot of his shots. But he was landing eventually. He was getting kicks in. He was messing up Moreno's knee. He was putting on pressure, and especially at the end of the fight, when you look at Moreno, who I like, that was completely different. A lot of people are saying, is he washed? What happened to Moreno? And I'm just thinking, was it the altitude? Was it something happened? Or is this just who he is now? But maybe it's a strategic thing, right? Maybe he's trying to pick his moments to be explosive and hit those power shots, and that was working, especially in the beginning of the fight. But to then see later on in the fight him kind of diminish a bit, and then to the point where he's holding on to Royval, stalling. Like, would not expect Moreno, out of all the fighters in the UFC, to be stalling and holding on. Was that the altitude? I don't know, but that's not the Moreno we're used to. And great reffing to stop the stalling as quickly as possible. Now, there's questions about if this is going to be Moreno moving forward, or is he going to be able to change it back and turn back the clock? But even that being said, it was a super close fight, razor thin, tons of swing rounds. I would have been fine either way. But I also don't think it was some snooze fest either. Like, I see people online saying, oh, it was so boring, terrible, like sleeper. Like, yeah, it wasn't the banger that we're used to from these guys, but it wasn't like a terrible fight. Royval gets the dub. I'm not mad at the decision at all. And then the call out after. The thing is, with that fight and that performance, do you want to see Royval fight Pantoja again? Especially with how much Pantoja dominated Royval last time, and it wasn't that long ago. Royval did the right thing to call out the champ and be tough and have that gangster moment. But then at the end of it, do we look at it and be like, is this the fight we want? The thing is, this division is so shallow. What do you do at this point? Do we keep recycling these fights over and over again? And the judge who gave Moreno the 49-46, I don't know about that. That was bad, but at the same time, there were so many swing rounds, so I can understand in some world that they give that to him, but I did not agree. Now, moving on to the co-main, which is arguably the most important fight of the night, Ortega versus Yair. So many takeaways from this fight. First off, Ortega rolling his ankle before the fight even starts. Like, I'm watching and I see him buckle a bit, and I'm like, oh, you know, you don't see like the actual ankle roll. Then they show the replay and you see the ankle roll and you're like, bruh, are you kidding me? After all that time off, the Tracy Cortez thing, injuries, losing, you know, not winning since Ilia was 1-0 in the UFC, all this stuff happening to Brian Ortega, all this time off, he needs this win. He comes into the fight, before it even starts, he rolls his ankle, and you're thinking like, is this gonna be it? Is he gonna not be able to walk or strike properly or move? We're looking at this like, what the hell? And for Yair, the stakes are just as high, because if you get this win, you're getting Ilia probably, because you and him have had a back and forth. There's a beef there. Both fans on each side are going crazy. The hype of these two alone right now could get him the title shot. We go into the fight and you're wondering, okay, how is Ortega gonna look after all this time off? And he's getting pieced up and clipped by Yair. Like, he's trying to get in, and he's getting popped. And you're thinking like, oh my God, is this it? Like, this is gonna be a first round KO. He's gonna piece him up easily. It's done. Like, he's washed. It's over. Then Yair's in his guard, not giving a f. He's just landing boom. And you're like, damn, is this gonna be this one-sided? Then we go to round two and Ortega just dominates. And it's shocking because how can you lose a round so bad? It looks like you are done. I see people saying it's over. Like, this guy sucks now. Like, he's terrible. Someone said like it's the worst performance they've seen. Like, I was like, yo, what? And to see him go from that to the second round and dominate Yair on the ground, landing elbows, cutting him up, getting him bloody, I'm like, yo, this shows hard. This is the Ortega we know. He's a dog. He probably remembered his exes in the crowd and he's like, yo, I can't let this slide. We get to the third round and right away, Ortega found his groove, is able to get inside on Yair without taking too many shots. And even if he did, he just ate him and kept going. And then he was able to just manhandle him, control him, dominate him, and then finish the fight. What a comeback from Ortega. This kind of hyped me up. I'm like looking at this guy like, yo, he showed that dog in him. He showed that fight in him. To come back like that, there were so many moments for excuses for Ortega. You're coming off injuries, so much time off. You could say ring rust. You're getting pieced up. Like, there's so much happening. And he showed so much resilience. And then to beat Yair, spoil the party, man, mad props. He needed this win because now he's right back in the title picture. If he loses this fight, we're thinking, okay, is this it for Ortega? Because he hasn't won in so long. It's been since 2020. That being said, he was scared of the ref afterwards. He was like, whoa, 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 my bad, my bad. Apparently it was because he couldn't hear. So he was like, I couldn't hear. So I just, kept squeezing. And then he really felt, the ref like pushing him. And he's like, okay, my bad, my bad. And I believe him. I don't think he meant to do Yair like that. And honestly, after the Volk fight, I don't blame him for holding on just a couple extra seconds to make sure, like, we're good. The thing is now, though, it's a great win. But he took a lot of damage. And people are talking about if he fights Ilia next and Ilia hits him with big shots, is he going to be able to endure that as tough as he is? And that's the same question for Max Holloway as well. So whether it's Max, Volk, or Ortega, that question of can you handle Ilia's power is still going to come into play. The thing is, what's a bigger fight? Volk rematch against Topuria in Spain? Or is it Ortega? Or is it Max Holloway? You could argue Max Holloway is the biggest one just because of Max Holloway's name. But remember, of course, the Gaethje fight, is he going to have time to turn around? When do they want to make this fight with Ilia? If they want to do it in Spain, it might actually take a long time to set that up, which could result in them doing it with Max. But if not, I'm happy with Ortega getting the shot next. Or you do Ortega, Yair, trilogy match, because now they're 1-1 technically. Do that to decide who's going to get Ilia Topuria next. And in the meantime, he could fight Max or Volk. So there's a lot of options. It's just a matter of which one do you like the most, which one makes the most sense, makes most money, etc., etc. Then we go to Zellhuber versus Prado. And this was a dogfight, especially from Prado. Early on, it was, a little bit back and forth, but then rounds 2 and 3, Zellhuber just put it on him. Doing an amazing job keeping distance, popping him with straights, kicks, and Prado was eating everything and saying, you know what? I'm going to get hit, but I'm going to hit you back on the way out. But for the most part, Zellhuber dominated, and that's the kind of fight you want in Mexico City. Great showing from Zellhuber in front of his home crowd. Another win for him, and he's an up-and-coming lightweight, so it's going to be good to see where he goes from here. And for Prado to show that toughness, the fans love it, the UFC loves it. You gain a lot of respect for that, and you're 21 years old, you're so young, you don't want a lot of fights like that, but you still have a lot of time. And then the funniest thing was when his coaches were saying you don't need an eye to fight because his eye was literally closing down. Bisping tweets, yeah, you don't need an eye. And if there's anyone who can say that, it's Bisping. Now moving on to a big bummer on the fight card was Raul obviously not being able to fight. Them telling us moments before it happened, don't try to make a sick fighter fight. Like, what's the point? I get it for Raul because he wants to fight in front of this crowd. It's an amazing opportunity for him. Of course he would want to do it, but for the UFC, when you hear a young fighter, especially someone as young as Raul, they're sick, you don't want them going into a fight in those conditions. So it's tough, but ultimately it was the right decision. But from the UFC side, to then say, oh, he's gonna fight next week at the Apex, I'm like, what? If he's so sick that he can't fight tonight, why would you put him just a week later? Give him time to actually recover properly, and then he can make weight again. You're gonna give him a week to not just feel better, but also cut weight again? It makes no sense. Then you have Ricky saying he didn't even sign a contract. So you're saying this fight's gonna happen next week when Ricky didn't even sign. Now granted, they'll probably make it work, but there's still no need for all this. Moving on though to another up-and-coming fighter, Torres, phenomenal performance, gets the RNC super quick, and that's what you need. You're in your home crowd, you get a quick finish, you're 2-0 now, he's building momentum, that's amazing for him. Again, another lightweight coming up, possibly can make some noise. And speaking of RNCs, Barcelos coming back to get it, and now Quinones 0-2, that's rough. Another tough one to Silva being 0-5 in the UFC. Now it's different if you're losing, but it's a back and forth, it's a good fight. This wasn't even a fight. It was just instantly, he goes for a takedown, gets snatched up by the triangle, fight's over. It's, and people are saying an all-time terrible run in the UFC for De Silva. It's honestly just tough to see. But honestly, I don't know what's worse, that or what Claudio Puelles did. Claudio Puelles might be the most one-dimensional fighter right now in the UFC. It's insane. Literally refusing to strike. He landed 2 significant strikes in the first 2 rounds. He is not fun to watch, and his last 2 fights have been absolutely terrible. It was so bad, Zion wasn't even happy that he won. And to be fair, you know Puelles' plan. How did you not prep for that? Like, I never want to say this, but like, I can't stand watching him like cut him from the UFC. On a brighter note though, shout out to Luis Rodriguez for getting the last minute submission over Bondar. The crowd was hyping him up, and to have a great performance like that on your debut is huge. Then of course the Felipe fight, super controversial. A lot of people saying robbery. You know, it's tough to say. The judging was kind of wild like the whole night. So it's like, you know, what are they going off of? A lot of people were saying the damage was the most important thing, but the control time here. And then it's like, honestly, I wasn't too sure. And it was just kind of like, especially with how the rest of the night went, I was kind of like, I don't really know what to do with this judging. Overall though, lots of great moments for certain fighters, the younger fighters coming up too, and a great atmosphere overall in Mexico City. Please, we need more events like this. And it doesn't have to be Mexico. You can just, please, more events in cities, in not the Apex. Very solid card, 8 out of 10 for me. Let me know though what your thoughts were and what you want to see more of me talk about, and hopefully I can deliver. Peace.